All right, guys, welcome to our final day of Design with Purpose, where we're converting ideas to visuals. So today we'll be running through stage 3 of, ideas to visuals. Um, I don't know if I told you guys what we're going through today. Um, so today we'll be going through um, layout and composition. All right, so a few things about layout and composition. So they both work hand in hand with each other. So there's a complete overlap with layout and composition to the point that you probably won't, if you were to look this up on the internet right now, you probably won't be able to split the difference because the definition is so similar, and some websites will explain this particular topic so vague. You just talk about as if it's one thing when it's actually not. So today I am going to just to break not the differences, but we're going to talk about the two. And the way I'll be discussing it is as if they were two different things. So if you guys hear anybody talk about these two, you would be able to relate about this. So, right, so we'll go into layout first. I summed up the definition of the word layout in terms of design for this piece. So layout, according to the internet, right, is the arrangement of elements on a page. So when you talk about the arrangement of elements, we're not just talking about any arrangements because you could just spell something anywhere on the page and that's basically arrangement. We're basically targeting the specific placements of images, text, and style. And as you can see, this is an example within the definition that I'm using right now. As you can see, I've perfectly put this of, this the word images, the word text, the word style, the word specific placements. They're all curated in they all occupy a specific part of this page or specific part of this layout. So you could see and decipher which element from which. So to piece everything all together, layout, it just gives your work structure, right, guys? It just gives you work structure, and it makes it easier for you to navigate around the page. So it just prevents your work from looking like a visual catastrophe. Um, so there's some things that could make great layout, and we're going to go into this right now because there are some things that you need to know about layout that if you do them, just even at the simplest, you already achieve what good layout is in design. So let's go. Alignment. So when we speak about alignment, I think we talk about the alignment tool a little bit in Illustrator. So alignment is just aligning your images to the page. It's the same with, when you open up Microsoft Word, it gives everything structure from heading to body text, images, etc. Um, there's still brick rectangles recommend alignment. The reason why I use these boxes instead of words because it operates the same way. So you could use images and you align them this exact way I'm showing you right now. And when you're working with text, pieces of text, you have to, in design and composition, the easiest way to align and arrange these is to imagine them as boxes. So if you could imagine a piece of text like the box I've shown you in this example, you'll see type much different when you're designing compared to when you're just writing them out on a text document. All right, so another thing that makes layout great is something that you probably don't hear much, but this is white space. So when you speak about white space, we're not necessarily talking about white space. We're basically talking about the negative space around the design. So we're talking about the margin, the space between the images and the text, the spaces between the margin and the text, or the margin and the images. So that's basically what white space is. The reason why this is so important is that you want your work to breathe. You want your eyes to just easily flow through a page rather than wondering which element is connected to which. So yeah, this is why white space is so important. Moving on, proximity. So this is the um next word that you guys don't hear much about layout, but proximity is actually really important in graphic design on a whole, mainly because when you're working in proximity, proximity is actually being able to group like images and terms together. So let's say for the sake of this example is these squares that you see on my page. There's two bars grouped to one. There's two bars grouped to one. There are four bars grouped closer together than the others. Right, guys? So, and there's a lot more space between everything else. So this is just to give more context. The four boxes that are grouped closer are actually images, and the two above could be the heading, your name, and let's say the two below is just your contacts. Yes, so it's just to organize and group like terms or like features of a piece of design. Right, guys? That's really it for proximity. This is all you need for great layout. There's also more that ties with both layout and composition, but I don't want to go into that because it would blur the lines a little bit. But I think these are what makes layout itself stand out. So when we go to composition now, composition is really a little bit different. So according to my definition, with the help of the internet, composition is the arrangement of visual elements on a page to convey structure or appeal. It doesn't seem much differently from layout, but just to sum this up, I didn't put this in the slide, but the main difference that I could personally tell you between layout and composition is that layout helps with clarity and composition draws your eye to the design, right? You guys following? Yeah, so that's the main thing I could tell you about these two. So we're gonna go into what makes composition great. There are a lot of art definitions I could bring in and art terms that I could bring in to help what makes good composition stand out. But I only have one word to sum everything for composition, right? So that is contrast. There's nothing more important than contrast in your design because contrast makes everything look interesting. That's really it. Contrast just draws everything together. So There are a lot of things that ties into making contrast work in a design. We have hierarchy. Um, that's what contrast does. It creates hierarchy in your design. Um, with where that ties back into layout is where you use pieces of text. You will have the heading, you will have your body text, you'll sometimes probably have your little name stuffed in the corner. I think I have that with this page right now. You see Fathom in the corner, you see the name of this workshop, and you have my Instagram handle and name down in the bottom. Not taking too much apart from what I'm trying to tell you guys, but it's just there, right? So we also have emphasis. Um, Emphasis could work in a lot of ways, whether it be making making a color more saturated, or it could be as simple as making something bigger, drastically bigger. And with text, it could be simply making something bold. And lastly, you could make a scene more dynamic. In Romany's case, where he does a lot of artwork, this is just, we're moving from just simplistic designs to where you're doing artwork, where you're going full on detail. Composition is important. The way everything lays out, and the more elements you put, the more elements you're working with, the more you have to know where you want to put them. So that's what makes contrast so important. So yeah, one way we could use contrast is, as I said, through color. You make one image more saturated or one more desaturated, which just to draw your eye a little bit more into your design. We're talking about size as well. With size, it's just making everything bigger or smaller just to tell the difference between two subjects. When I speak about the size and color, the way contrast works is that it has to be you have to see a drastic difference. So with color, one has to be either desaturated and saturated. Size, one has to be small and the next one be really large. And with font pairing is actually a technique that you use with type. Um, a little more into the font pairing, you have seen this throughout the whole course. Just a little thing in the corner where you have purpose in bold, which is a much bold weight, and designing width is in a much more a much more light weight font, because yeah, a much more lightweight font. That's what font pairing does. It's also in the beginning where you see me use contrast, working with bold and light fonts at the same time. And this is why in the last workshop we did, I told you guys about font family. Not font family, but typeface family or font family. Yeah, it's the same thing. Because when you're working with font family, you wouldn't have to be looking for a different font. You could just be working within the same typeface, just you're working with different weights. And it would be helpful to you to just utilize the different weights in the font family rather than to look for an entirely different font that might change the whole feel of what you're trying to say. All right, guys. So this brings our closing to our presentation. These are the references used. We're going to go in the activity section. This is going to be our last activity, guys. So rather than I'm doing an activity with just layout and composition, we're going to do the whole shebang, right? We're going to include type, we're going to include visuals, we're going to include, layout and composition.